Hi, Buddy Lindsay here from GoDjango.com. In this video today, I kind of wanted to talk to you about a little bit on Django 1.11. Since its release candidate came out, I wanted to kind of highlight a few of the things that I find interesting in it. So with that, let's get started. The first thing is that Django 1.11 is going to be the last version that supports a Python version 2. So that means when 2.0 of Django releases, it's going to be a 3. Only release. So that's kind of interesting. And Python 1.11 supports Django 3.6. Django 1.10 does not. So we're moving along on the Python 3000 train, and we're leaving 2 behind. And I think that's going to be a good thing for the future of Django and doing development with Python. The next thing that I'm kind of interested in for sure is that deprecation warnings are now going to be silent. One of the frustrations I have on several things is like I'm running my run server and I know that there's a bunch of things being deprecated, but I'm not in a position to be able to fix those at the moment, and probably won't be for a month or two. But they're still there, and sometimes they can be quite lengthy, and they kind of get in the way when doing restarting of the server and everything. They just kind of get annoying and frustrating. So those are going to be quiet now, and you just run a special command with Python, and boom, you'll see all the deprecation warnings. The next thing is the template-based widget rendering. This one's kind of interesting, and I've not really dug into it a lot, but it looks like some of the widget rendering for different inputs is going to be managed through HTML instead of through Python. It's kind of an interesting, different way to look at it, and I've kind of been a little frustrated at times that I have to manage how my widgets look through Python, because it just doesn't seem like the right place to handle that. So it's kind of interesting to see it going to be moved to template widgets, and I'll be curious to see how well that works out. I'm actually going to start looking at it in the next couple of weeks to try to really understand it, because I think it's going to be an interesting feature. The next thing is there's going to be a subquery expression in the ORM. This is kind of cool because like the 4 or 5 times that I've ever needed to do a subquery in Django, I've had to do custom queries, and it's kind of frustrating to deal with doing a custom query, dropping it in Django, because I much prefer to use the ORM and get the power of the ORM. So now that there's going to be a subquery object available to us in the ORM so that we can do our subqueries in SQL. And I think it's going to be an interesting addition. It's kind of interesting that it's being introduced because, as far as I understand, the ORM was meant to be database agnostic, and now we're kind of adding a kind of a database specific thing. But that was kind of broken when we started adding Postgres specific features into Django, so that you can do very specific things with Postgres. So I don't know, we'll see. It's interesting. I thought I would bring it up because I'm sure there's going to be a number of people that are interested in it. Also, Django contrib auth is moving away from its views, from being function-based views to being class-based views. I haven't really looked into this much, but I'm assuming it's basing it on generic class-based views. It's kind of neat. It's kind of interesting that they're making that move, and I can't wait to dig into the code to check it out and see how some of the core developers use class-based views, especially in the contrib auth system, because it's kind of a vital thing to the rest of Django that a lot of people use. So I definitely recommend checking it out. Another interesting move is that you now store your Csrf token in your session instead of in your cookies. It's kind of an interesting feature if you turn the setting on. I don't think it's going to hurt anything necessarily to keep it in the cookie, but there has been a lot of things in the past where people complain, hey, the Csrf token is in the cookie, so therefore Django is insecure. And then the core developers have to go in and do this long explanation as to why, how Django specifically has it implemented. It's not a security risk, and this kind of eliminates that argument altogether. So this one's kind of a bummer, kind of sort of for me, is that the render method for templates no longer allows a context or request context type object. It has to be a dictionary. it's kind of a bummer for me because that was my first Django contribution to the core Django, was fixing a bug in that context object. And so I have a feeling at some point that code's going to be removed. But hey, at least I have my commit history, I have my name in the commit history. So, but I actually think this is kind of a good move. I thought it was weird that there was this dictionary-like object called a context object that was being used with templates. And I am actually happy to see that it is moving to an actual dictionary, which is more what people are used to using, and it's not some amalgamation of a dictionary. But again, some of the code that I wrote is going to go bye-bye eventually, and that's kind of sad, sort of. Another interesting thing is if you use character fields and you set null equal to true. Generally, with a lot of people I talk to and in my own experience, if you use a character field in a model, don't set null equal to true, because it's just going to set it to a blank string, and Python is going to use it accordingly, and it's going to know that that's an empty value, unless you specifically need the difference between a null and a blank string. Which brings us to the next issue, is that with the null equals to true, if you have a blank string, it's going to set it to null. So that means if in the past you've expected a null or a blank string with Django 1.11, it is going to take that empty string and create a null in the database. So that's something to be aware of moving forward. And then finally, the last thing I want to bring up is when you run your migrations and you're changing and you're removing models and everything and fields, you have a content types. I haven't dug into content types to truly understand what they do, but I understand a little bit, and they kind of track what models are related to what models inside of the Django system, and it kind of give your internal Django an idea of what's going on. Well, if you've noticed, when you've removed fields or you remove models, you get this thing, hey, this is stale content. Do you want to remove these content types? And you generally say yes or no, or you ignore it, whatever. They're actually removing that from the migrations so that after you run a migration, it's not going to prompt you anymore to remove stale content types. You're actually going to have to run a new management command called remove stale content types. And that'll give you that prompt that you're used to, and you can remove your content types. So if you use that a lot and all of a sudden you see it gone one day in Django 1.11, that's the reason why it's been moved to its own management command. So with that, those are, I think, the biggest things that I find interesting that's coming in Django 1.11. There's a lot more in there, and I really recommend you go ahead and read the release notes when they come out, when the final version of Django comes out. That actually leads me to my next question is, would you all like me to read the entirety of the release notes so you can just kind of listen to it in the background of whatever you're doing? If you're on the way home and you want to listen to it, or you're at your desk and you just kind of want to listen to someone read off the release notes so that you don't have to sit there and read the whole thing yourself. If you find that interesting, go ahead and get in contact with me. You can leave a comment below, or you can email me and say, hey, I want to listen to the release notes of the next version of Django. And I'll be happy to go ahead and sit down and do that. There's a lot there, so it might be a little bit of a longer video, but I'll be happy to do it if that's what the community wants. I want to thank you for your time. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, give it a thumbs down. Feel free to comment either way, and please subscribe to the channel to get more content. I thank you for your time, and have a good day.